He was sitting on top of a pile of trash bags like he thought he belonged there. This is Rook. He's a 5-month-old German Shepherd puppy, and the way he watched every car but never moved told me he was waiting for the one that had thrown him away. It was midday in a hot parking lot. Cars rolling in and out, doors slamming, people rushing past. In the middle of all that noise, he stayed frozen on his little island of trash. From a distance, I honestly thought he was just part of the pile. No collar, no bowl, no blanket. Just a skinny body on black plastic and cardboard, as if the garbage was the only place he still believed he belonged. My name is Trevor, and I've been around a lot of abandoned dogs. Most of them pace, chasing any pair of eyes that might feed them or take them home. Rook didn't. He sat quiet and straight, staring at the road like it was a doorway that might open if he waited long enough. When a door slammed, one ear twitched. When an engine passed, his head followed it, then snapped back to the exit where the cars disappeared. He wasn't scanning for kindness. He was waiting for one car, one person who was never coming back. I shut my car door softer than I needed to and walked toward him, trying not to look like another problem. The smell of hot trash and gasoline pushed up from the ground. The closer I got, the smaller he seemed, all sharp hips, dull fur, and eyes that belonged on an old dog, not a puppy. Then, halfway between my car and the dumpster, something finally shifted. Rook's gaze slid off the road. Those tired brown eyes left the stream of traffic and, slowly, carefully, locked onto me instead. He didn't look away when I stopped. He just held my eyes like he was checking if I was another car or something else entirely. I made myself smaller first. People forget that with a scared dog. I didn't walk straight up to him. I took a slow arc and sat down on the hot concrete a good distance away, turned a little sideways like we were just two strangers sharing the same bus stop. Up close, I saw how his body was lying to anyone who didn't know dogs. A stranger would say he was being good, tail tucked so tight it almost disappeared, ears flat, paws locked, that German Shepherd puppy chest barely moving like even breathing felt risky. Freeze isn't obedience. Freeze is another kind of panic. So I talked, but not much, just low, boring words. The kind of sound that says, "I'm here, but I'm not a problem." While I talked, I eased a small plastic bowl from my bag, filled it with water, and slid it a little closer, then left it there. He stared at it like it might explode. No lip lick, no shuffle forward. Only his eyes moved, tracing from my hand to the bowl and back. Grabbing a puppy like that is how you teach him that hands hurt. So, I didn't. I stood up, stepped back, and pretended to be more interested in the dumpster. I sprinkled a thin line of kibble along the edge of the trash pile, close enough to smell, far enough to run. For a long minute, nothing happened. Cars came and went. Heat bounced off the pavement. He stayed frozen on his little trash island. Then a truck growled past. As the engine rolled through the lot, he finally broke his statue act. He slid off the bags in a low crawl, belly near the ground, eyes still on the road even as he moved. One quick drink, a few hard bites, and he scrambled back up like it never happened. That's when it really sank in. Every sound of an engine wasn't a warning to him. It was a question. Is that them? I tried one slow step closer, just to see if I still existed in his world. This time, when he lifted his head, he didn't look straight past me. He held my gaze a heartbeat longer than before. And then, somewhere behind us, a car door slammed hard. He flinched like he'd been yanked by a string, launched himself off the bags, and vanished behind the dumpster, leaving the water bowl rocking in the dirt. The next day he was there again, like someone had pressed pause on his life and walked away. Same pile of bags, same spot in the sun, same eyes stuck to the road. I pulled into the lot at the exact same time on purpose. Dogs learn patterns faster than we do, and a scared brain likes knowing what's coming next. I parked a little farther back so I wouldn't crowd him with noise. Turned off the engine. Let the silence land before I opened my door. He heard it anyway. That little head tilted an inch, then froze again like he was thinking, "Is it them?" I walked the same slow arc, sat in the same place on the concrete, and set down a fresh bowl of water and a line of kibble like I'd done the day before. I didn't reach for him, didn't whistle, didn't clap my hands. With a fearful pup, the more you push, the more you teach him you can't be trusted. Hands can mean pain, so you let your voice and your timing do the work instead. I talked about nothing while the sun cooked my shoulders. Told him what day it was, what I'd bought at the store, how stupid it was that he was out here alone in a world built by people who didn't deserve a dog. My words didn't matter. The tone did. Day 2, he didn't come down. He just watched. Day 3, I caught a tiny shift. The second he heard my car, he looked up faster, like he recognized the sound. By day 4, I didn't have to wait as long. I sat, set the bowl down, and before the first car could pass, he slid off the trash with that same low crawl, eyes flicking between the exit and the food. He drank first, big desperate gulps, then snatched a few bites and scrambled back up. But he didn't disappear all the way this time. He stayed halfway up the pile, still and watchful, staring at me over the rim of the dumpster like a little shadow that hadn't decided what I was yet. That's what consistency does for a scared, almost rescued puppy. You show up at the same time, in the same way, until your pattern feels safer than their fear. On the 5th day, I shifted a little experiment into the routine. I put the bowl down, but I didn't back all the way off. I stayed where I was, legs crossed, hands loose on my knees, heart beating way too loud for a guy just sitting in a parking lot. He hesitated longer this time, studying me like a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Then he slid down again, step by step, not breaking eye contact until his nose dipped into the bowl. He ate slowly, almost politely, chewing each piece like he was waiting for the trap to spring. When the food was gone, he lifted his head, crumbs on his whiskers, chest rising a little easier, and instead of shooting back to his trash island, he just stood there on the pavement, bowl between us, staring at me like he was trying on the idea that I might keep showing up. The thing about showing up every day is you start noticing changes you wish you didn't. A week in, he should have been filling out with all that kibble and water. Instead, the German Shepherd puppy looked narrower, like the heat and stress were burning through whatever I was putting in. His hips were sharper, his eyes were heavier. The parking lot wasn't just lonely anymore. It was starting to feel dangerous. Feeding him and walking away stopped feeling like kindness and started feeling like a delay. At some point, you have to stop being the nice guy with the bowl and become the one who actually gets him out. So one morning, I loaded a soft-sided kennel into the back of my car. Nothing fancy, just a fabric crate that had been in my garage, with an old blanket from my living room stuffed inside, so it smelled like an actual home, not plastic and dust. I parked in our usual spot at our usual time. Same engine shutting off, same quiet moment after. He was already watching, waiting to see if I'd follow the pattern or change the rules. I carried the kennel over like it was no big deal and set it down a few feet from his trash pile, door wide open, blanket spilling a little onto the pavement. Then I dropped a trail of kibble from the edge of his island straight into the crate, like breadcrumbs, leading to someplace better. Crates and kennels get a bad name because people use them like punishment. For a scared, almost rescued puppy, they're not supposed to be a jail. They're supposed to be a cave, a den, 4 soft walls that say, "You're off duty now, you can breathe." And he didn't buy it at first. He crouched on the bags, nose working overtime, eyes bouncing between the open door and my hands. I made sure my hands stayed boring, no sudden moves, no grabbing, nothing that felt like a trap waiting to spring. Eventually, the smell of food and fabric got stronger than his suspicion. He slid down from the trash, step by slow step, shoulders tight, claws clicking on the hot pavement. He picked up the first piece of kibble, then the second, never taking both eyes off the escape routes. When he reached the mouth of the kennel, he paused so long I could hear my own heartbeat. Then he stretched his neck inside, sniffed the blanket, backed out, Yoko circled, and tried again. I let him. In and out, every pass a little deeper. No door closing behind him, no rush, just this new space quietly existing, waiting for him to decide if it could be his. On the 4th pass, he stepped all the way in, turned once, then folded his legs under himself and sank down into the blanket like it was the first soft thing he'd felt in weeks. And there, in the middle of a grocery store parking lot, he let out one long, shaky breath that sounded like a whole body finally admitting it was tired. Getting him into the car wasn't some cinematic rescue. I just let him stay in the kennel, picked the whole thing up, and slid it into the back like a fragile box I didn't want to drop. He stiffened when the engine started. I felt the crate shift, heard his nails scrape once against the floor. Then nothing. No barking, no howling, just a silent German Shepherd puppy trying to figure out if this was the ride home or the ride back to nowhere. I talked to him over my shoulder the whole drive, told him where we were going, how far it was, how the house was quiet and old and full of dog hair from others who'd passed through. He didn't know the words, obviously, but he knew the tone. That low, steady rhythm fills the same space fear tries to live in. When we got home, I carried the kennel straight into the smallest, calmest room I have. No TV, no slamming doors, just a rug, a chair, and 4 walls that don't ask too many questions. I set the crate down in the corner, opened the zipper, and then did the hardest part for a human and the best part for a dog. I sat on the floor and did absolutely nothing. Decompression is ugly for us because it looks like wasted time, no tricks, no cute videos, no showing him off to the neighbors. For a dog who's been living on adrenaline and survival, it's the first time his brain is allowed to stop scanning and just exist. He stayed in the kennel at first, eyes darting from me to the doorway, taking inventory of every sound. Then, inch by inch, he crawled forward until his paws touched the edge of the rug. His nose went to work on the corners of the room, baseboards, chair legs, the bottom of the door, mapping this new world without ever moving more than a few feet from his cave. He found the table, tested the space under it, decided that was a decent backup bunker, then retreated to the crate like a soldier returning to base. Back and forth, checking routes, never letting me out of his side eye. I didn't reach for him, didn't pat my legs or open my arms. I just sat there, legs crossed, talking about boring things, trash day, the weather, the fact that if he wanted to stay in that kennel all evening, that was fine by me. By the time the sun went down, he'd settled into a pattern, from crate to bowl, from bowl to under the table, then back to crate again. Every loop a little looser, his body a little less wired tight. That night, I left the kennel door open and turned off the light, the way you do for someone who might want to step out but isn't ready to be invited. Traffic hummed outside my window. Each time a car rolled by, I heard him shift and give this tiny broken whine, like part of him still thought he should be checking every engine that passed. Sometime before dawn, I finally drifted off, and just before morning, I woke up because the air in my bedroom felt different. He hadn't made a sound. I just opened my eyes and saw a small dark shape curled up right against the doorway, his body blocking the gap like a question mark between us. The first real sign that he wanted something from me came over coffee. I was in the kitchen, half awake, waiting for the kettle to stop screaming. When I turned around, he was there in the doorway, that skinny German Shepherd puppy just standing in the frame like a question. He wasn't wagging or whining, he was just watching, head low, eyes tracking every move like he was still deciding if I was safe or just the human who brought food. I pretended it was normal. Poured the water, stirred my mug, let the smell of coffee and toast drift his way. Then, out of nowhere, he did something small that absolutely wrecked me. He stretched his neck forward, grabbed the edge of a dish towel hanging from the oven door, and gave it this tiny testing tug. Not a full game, not a wild puppy move, just a quick steal and release, like he was asking, if I try to play, is everything going to fall apart again? I didn't grab for the towel, didn't bark, hey, the way a lot of people do. I just looked at him and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. That's yours if you want it, I told him. He blinked, dropped it, then took one careful step backward, checking my face to see if the sky was about to fall. That's when I realized he needed more than food and a roof. He needed a name that wasn't followed by anger. He'd been moving in straight little lines since the day I found him. Kennel to bowl, bowl to doorway, doorway to hallway. Never cutting loose, never curving off the safe path. It made me think of a rook on a chessboard, only allowed to move forward or sideways, no diagonals, no leaps. Rook, I said out loud, testing how it felt in the room. His ear twitched. I didn't repeat it like command. I didn't use that sharp edge people put on a name right before no. I just said it again, softer this time, and tossed a small treat a little in front of him. Name, treat. Pause. He watched the treat land, then looked back at me, weighing his options. Finally, he stepped forward, picked it up, chewed, and didn't bolt. We did it again. Rook, another tiny piece, a little closer to my feet. Another second where he chose to stay instead of vanish under the table. By the fourth or fifth try, I didn't even have to throw it. I said his name, held the treat in my open hand, and he came those last few steps on his own, tail giving the smallest shaky little wave like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be happy yet. The first time I clipped a leash to his harness, my hands shook more than his did. We'd practiced inside the house the day before, just slipping the harness on and off, letting him sniff it, drop treats through the neck hole like it was some weird little vending machine. Out on the front step, though, it was different. The street was quiet, but for him, quiet just meant he could hear every single thing. He stood at the edge of the porch, body leaning back, nose high, the hay nostrils pulling in all the information at once. Some dogs rush the door the second they see a leash. This German Shepherd puppy planted his feet and thought about it. Just to the mailbox, I told him. Not that he cared where the mailbox was. That part was for me, so I didn't push him too far just because I wanted a nice walk. We took 3 steps and his brain hit the first landmine. A car in the distance, tire noise on asphalt, low and steady. His whole body went stiff. Tail down, eyes locked, lungs on hold. There's this little window with fearful dogs where they can still take a treat and still hear you. Once that window slams shut, they're gone, stuck in their own panic. So I watched his face more than the street. I put a tiny piece of chicken right under his nose. He sniffed it, hesitated, then took it and swallowed. Okay. We were still in that window. I didn't drag him closer to the noise like some people think you should, to get him used to it. Flood a dog like that and you don't teach him to cope. You teach him the world doesn't listen when he's scared. So we did the opposite. We stepped a little sideways into someone's lawn, putting distance between him and the road until I saw his shoulders drop a fraction. We made that whole first walk in short lines. Mailbox, stop, sniff the grass, eat a treat, listen to a car go by from far away, half a block, stop again. Every time he froze, we didn't argue about it, we just gave his brain time to catch up. By the end of the week, our walk was really just loops on the same quiet street, circling the same trees, learning the same sounds. Engines, garbage cans, a delivery truck that always squealed at the same corner. And bit by bit, he started checking in with me instead of the exit routes. One morning, we reached the end of the block and stood at the intersection. A car rolled past us on the cross street, close enough that the breeze lifted his fur. He stared at it the way he always had, muscles tight, ready to bolt. Then, without me saying a word, he broke his own stare and turned his head back toward me, eyes asking a question I hadn't heard from him before. Good days can trick you into thinking the hard parts are over. A week after that first quiet intersection, Rook was moving through the neighborhood like he owned at least 3 sidewalks. His tail wasn't high, but it wasn't buried either. He could watch a car pass from half a block away and still blink instead of disappear. And then we had one of those mornings. The garbage truck showed up early, grinding gears right in front of my house. Somebody in the alley behind us started yelling into their phone. The air smelled like hot oil and exhaust and old food. I clipped his leash like always and opened the gate for our walk. The truck slammed its metal arm into a dumpster right as the latch clicked. That sound went straight through him. Rook didn't think. He just launched. 40-something pounds of German Shepherd puppy hit the end of the leash like a bolt of electricity. For a second, I held on. Then the harness strap slipped just enough. He twisted just right, and suddenly I was holding an empty loop. He ran like he knew exactly where he was going, not around the block, not to a random corner. His whole body arrowed in one direction, heart first, straight down the sidewalk like he was following a map burned into his paws. I went after him, of course. But there's a point with a panicked dog where chasing just turns you into another thing they're running from. You can't outrun trauma in a pair of old sneakers. He cut across 2 side streets, dodged between parked cars, never once looking back. By the time my chest was on fire and my legs were starting to complain, I saw the top of the grocery store sign. He had gone home, his old home, the only one his fear still believed in. When I turned into that parking lot, there he was, same dumpster, same corner. Rook wedged himself back under the metal lip, folded into that awful, familiar shape, tail glued to his belly, head turned just enough to watch the road. People talk about progress like it's a straight line. With dogs like him, it's more like a heart monitor. Up, down, spike, crash, still beating. I could have yelled. I could have called his name sharp and angry and made this about my panic instead of his. All that would have taught him is that coming back to me makes the world louder, not safer. So I did the only thing that ever really worked with him. I walked over to the same patch of cracked asphalt where I'd sat the first week, and I lowered myself down until we were almost eye level again. I kept my voice low. "I know who left you," I said, watching his eyes flick between the exit and my face. "I'm not him. I'm the one who came back." We sat there like that for a long time, him under the metal lip of the dumpster, me on the same patch of cracked asphalt as the first day. I didn't pat my knees or call his name on repeat. I just talked a little, then shut up and let the sounds of the lot move around us. Engines, shopping carts, doors, life going on like nothing had happened to this one scared German Shepherd puppy hiding in plain sight. Every now and then I'd say something simple, "You're okay. I'm not here to move you. I can wait." Nothing fancy. Dogs don't need speeches. They need us to stick around when it would be easier to walk away. At some point, breathing under the dumpster changed. That rigid, shallow pant turned into something slower, heavier. His back twitched, then his shoulders shifted, and I heard the soft scrape of nails on concrete as he inched forward. He didn't crawl toward the road this time. He crawled sideways, out of the shadow, until the sunlight hit his face and he had to squint against it. His eyes flicked once toward the exit where the cars disappeared. Then they landed on me and stayed there. He paused a foot away, whole body vibrating, tail glued down, legs ready to bolt. I didn't lean in, didn't try to help by closing the gap. I let him decide how close was close enough. When he finally moved, it was slow, almost clumsy. He stepped forward, then folded down in front of me and lowered his head until his chin rested on my knees. The rest of him was still shaking like he was standing in a storm. But that choice to put his head there, to stay, was his. That's the line a lot of people miss. A dog glued to your side because he's terrified of what happens if he leaves is not the same as a dog choosing you when every part of him remembers being hurt. One is a shutdown shadow. The other is the start of trust. I slid my hand, slow as dusk, to the side of his neck and felt the fabric of his harness under my fingers. He flinched, then let out this tiny sigh that felt like him handing me a fragile key. I clipped the leash back on without lifting his head. No cheerleading, no pressure. When we finally stood up, he stayed right next to my leg, trembling but upright. We turned away from the dumpster together, and this time, as we walked out of that parking lot, he didn't look back at the road even once. A few weeks can change a lot when you're small and finally safe. Rook started eating like he believed the bowl would be there tomorrow. He slept deeper, those tight little curls on the rug stretching out into long, loose puppy sprawls. Most nights he ended up next to my bed, not at the doorway, like he'd moved his guard post closer to the person instead of the exit. Cars lost some of their teeth. We'd sit outside a small cafe on the corner, him tucked by my chair, watching the parking lot like a movie he didn't have to act in anymore. Engines came and went. He'd flick an ear, maybe glance over, then put his head back on his paws with this quiet, earned kind of calm. Our local rescue group asked if I could bring him to a meetup in the park, not as a dog for adoption sign stuck to a kennel, but as a living example of what happens when people decide not to look away. They wanted folks to see what dumped behind a store actually grows into when someone stays. So on a warm Saturday, we walked into the park together. He stayed close, not because he was terrified, but because that's where he decided his job was now, near my knee, scanning the world, checking in with those same eyes that once never left the road. Kids played on the grass, other dogs tugged at leashes, barked, rolled in the dirt. Rook sat under the shade of a tree with me, watching it all with that serious German Shepherd puppy stare, every so often leaning his shoulder into my leg like he was anchoring himself. When it was my turn to talk, I didn't tell some heroic story. I just told the truth. How he had been sitting on trash bags like he thought he belonged there. How he'd waited for a car that was never coming back. How many dogs like him never get past that parking lot. People listen differently with him lying there. It's one thing to hear about abandonment as an idea. It's another to look into the face of the dog who lived it and see that he still chooses to trust hands after what happened. That's the ripple effect of a single rescue. It's not just about one dog in one house. It's about the way his story slips into other people's heads the next time they think about getting rid of a problem. When the little talk wrapped up and folks started drifting away, I was gathering our things when a woman stepped closer. Her voice was soft, careful, like she was already trying not to scare him. "I saw a video of this boy in the rescue group," she said, eyes on Rook, not on me. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about him since." We took it slow, because goodbyes that aren't really endings have to be built, not dropped. Our first date was just another walk in the park. Same trees, same paths, just one more person on the end of the leash rotation. She walked beside us, not in front, talking to him in that soft, matter-of-fact way that doesn't demand anything. Rook watched her out of the corner of his eye, not scared, just measuring. He stayed closest to my leg at first, that serious German Shepherd puppy brain taking notes on every move we made. The next time, we met outside her house. We let him sniff the sidewalk, the yard, the front step before anyone even thought about opening a door. New smells, new sounds, but no rush. When she finally swung the door open, we didn't drag him inside. We stood there and let the house breathe on him. Cool air, coffee, a faint hint of another dog from a long time ago. He took a few steps in, backed out, then tried again, like he was checking if the doorway would close behind him without warning. Inside, she'd already set up quiet places for him. A bed in the corner of the living room, a blanket near the couch. No cages, no "this is where you go and stay." Just options. She didn't go straight for his head the way people love to do. She sat down on the floor with a book, leaned against the couch, and pretended he wasn't the center of her entire afternoon. It was the best lie she could have told him. Rook circled the room in slow, thoughtful loops. He tested the softness of the rug with his paws, checked the couch legs, listened for any sharp noises that might mean trouble. Nothing came. No yelling, no slammed doors, just pages turning and quiet breathing. He glanced at me a few times, looking for a read. I stayed relaxed on the chair, legs stretched out, shoulders down. Dogs borrow our nervous systems. If I'd tensed, he would have too. After a while, he drifted closer to her, drawn in by calm more than anything else. He stood just out of reach, watching the book like it might suddenly bark. She didn't move, didn't coax. Just let her hand rest on her knee, open, available, not hunting for him. When he finally made his choice, it was small and perfect. He eased down beside her, folded his legs, and after a long pause, set his head gently across her thigh, eyes half closed like he was trying on the idea of belonging there. I felt something in my chest unclench. That was the moment I knew my job was shifting from keep him alive to let him live. We repeated that a few times over the next days. Short visits, short walks, more time with her house smelling less like new and more like also mine. The day I left him there for the first real night, he walked me to the driveway. As I pulled away, he trotted after the car for a few yards, ears up, not frantic, just making sure I was really going. I watched in the mirror as he slowed down, stopped, and turned back toward her instead of the road. He didn't sit on the curb to wait for me. He walked back to the front door of a house that wasn't going anywhere. These days, when I see him, I don't see the dog on the trash bags first. I see the dog on the living room rug, head in someone's lap, snoring like he owns the whole afternoon. Same German Shepherd puppy, same eyes. They just look at the world differently now. He doesn't sit by roads waiting for engines anymore. He waits by the window to see who's coming home to him. He waits by the door for his leash because walks mean curiosity now, not survival. Rook went from that skinny pup behind a store to somebody's best friend, her shadow in the house, her excuse to get outside when life feels heavy, her reason to smile at strangers in the park. And yeah, I helped drive the car that brought him out of that parking lot. But he did the hard part. He kept choosing to try again in a world that had already shown him the worst of people. He kept trusting hands that could have hurt him and sounds that once sent him back under that dumpster. Dogs don't know words like shame or fault. They don't sit there thinking, what did I do wrong? They just carry whatever we hand them, fear or safety, pain or patience, and they do their best to live with it. This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are. They're the ones answering late-night messages, sharing photos, driving across town to pick up the dog someone else threw away. They're the reason Rook isn't still staring at the road, waiting for a car that doesn't deserve him. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. It's showing up on the bad days, not just taking pictures on the good ones. It's learning their triggers, giving them time to decompress, and deciding you will never be the person who drives away while they're still looking at your taillights. Right now, somewhere, there's another dog doing exactly what Rook did, sitting in a parking lot or behind a building or in a backyard that no one visits anymore, watching every sound, waiting for a car that isn't coming back. If his story hit you in the chest even a little, I'm asking you to do something with that feeling. Share this. Talk about him. Support your local rescue or foster or adopt the dog that everyone scrolls past because the story hurts to look at. Every view, every comment, every repost makes it more likely that the next Rook gets a second chapter instead of an ending in a place like that. Thank you for staying with Brave Paws family. Be their voice. Be their hope.